Good afternoon, I am Pete, also known as Risk for Rewards, or over on Twitter known as at Risk for Rewards. If you want to follow me over there, I've currently got around 20,000 followers. There's links on there to my blog and any content that will be up for throughout Royal Ascot Week. That's where you'll find most of my details and all my information for this week. However, I am going to be doing a lot more. Well, I say a lot more. Hopefully, I'll be doing plenty of YouTube this week, just because I need to, because it's faster. So if you haven't already clicked the link to subscribe, if you click the link to subscribe, just means you'll get a notification when any new videos go live. If you log on your home screen, whether it's on your TV, your phone, or whatever, it will just come up when I put new videos up. Because I don't always tweet them. Like, I'm not about to go and tweet this one straight away as it goes live. It'll just go live onto YouTube. So if you're chasing prices, or you just want to be keen and watch a video, or you're bored, it'll go there straight away. Either way, it doesn't make any odds to me. It's up to you. So Royal Ascot Week. So the reason, as I say, YouTube's a little bit more important this week is because things are just too fast. So what I mean by that is that anyone who's followed for a while will know that I write and I write and I write and I write and I cover in a lot of detail after research for all of the national hunt side of things. The positive for that is the fact that the national hunt, you have so much time to process, to analyse, and to write up content. I'll be writing the Cheltenham blog for the best part of 3 months. So from as soon as Boxing Day's over and the King George is finished, I can start writing profiles on horses, analysing races, and working out who's going where. Some horses won't even run again after the King George, so you already know they're going there unless they're injured. Whereas this is just not the case with Royal Ascot. I've been trying to write for this week, and in reality, I've done 3/4 of a Tuesday, and I've thought this is probably not worthwhile because you just cannot keep up with everything, and you're going to end up sacrificing trying to find winners because you're too busy writing about something. Which, in reality, if you've already done the research, you can just explain to people, and then they can choose whether to back it or not. So, for example, obviously we've got Tuesday's decks today. So now we're cutting horse races down from 30 or 40 runners down to say 20 runners. Perfect. But then you've got to go through those 20 runners. So obviously that came through at 10 o'clock this morning. We probably got them confirmed about 11 o'clock this morning. So then obviously that takes all day to get through those. And then as soon as you wake up tomorrow morning, you're then going to get Wednesdays. Okay, but Wednesday, even bigger fields, bigger handicaps. Handicaps will say 30 runners. And these are 7 races a day. And then, yeah, that's okay, that's all fine. But then Ascot starts. So then you're not only trying to do that, you're also watching the races. And that's forgetting the fact that you've actually trying to write things down. So I will do my best to get as much content as I can written, but a lot of it will be, there will be written content on Twitter because people will be at work and they'll need things to read to be able to put things into context, but it just won't be to the same depth as what I would normally like to do. And it's not because I'm being lazy or because I don't want to, I just cannot physically have the time because they don't do the decks quick enough. I'm looking at, say, Wednesday now. I'm like, oh, okay, Barnwell Boy. Yeah, I quite fancy him on for the Windsor Castle, and he's still got 2-3 entries. And you just can't. How can you start writing a profile on a horse over 5 furlongs when the profile is going to be completely different if they run over 6 furlongs, whether they have one run or not? Is the pedigree going to cope? Have they got the stamina for that? Where are they drawn? Because that's another massive thing with Ascot. It's very difficult to assess. Some races, very little relevance. Other races, the draw bias is massive. What's the ground going to be like? So everything is a lot more fluid on the flat, and especially with obviously this Ascot week, it comes thick and fast. I'm not going to lie. So I'm just going to go into a quick few pointers before I start off. So first one is obviously everyone loves a good slagging of Wesley Ward. I'm not here to do that at all. Wesley Ward has been a very confident person when he's come over. He's had a lot of confidence in his horses, and in fairness to him, he's had every right to in the past with some of the horses that he brought over, and he went through a phase where he's bringing them over and he was saying this horse is a monster, it's a machine. They bang out the gates and they are a monster and a machine. The issue is that hasn't been the case recently, and he's been coming over saying the exact same things each year, but they've not been providing it on the track. And a lot of people have got very sick of this. Oh yeah, this is the best horse I've changed. Like, he's obviously, I'm not going to go into it just yet, but we hear it every year. Me personally, I think he's been a little bit quieter. I don't know whether it's through social media, whether it's through people, however, I don't know if people have mentioned something. He's still confident when he had his interviews this morning on Nick Luck and etc. But he's confident rather than he's going around telling everyone this is the next big thing. So The other thing that I do think with Wesley Ward horses this week that is important is Wesley Ward has not had the rub of the green when it comes to the ground always in the last few years. So in the last few years, like their horses are trained on rattling fast ground. If the ground stays as it is right now and they don't overwater it, it is going to be their forte. That is rattling fast ground. Should be maybe the first day they might water it a bit like Cheltenham, make sure the first day's got a little bit of squidge in it. When I say squidge, I mean just on the good. It'll just be good. No firm in it. Maybe the soft side of good, just straight up good. And as the week goes on, it might dry out more and more. But we do have random storms coming. We do. But I'll tell you now, most of my selections this week have been based around it being good or faster. If we do get a deluge, this is again why you have to try and be fluid and not throw everything in at one go. Then you just worry about it as it comes to it. What else have we got? So next pointer is Frankie factor. So obviously I saw people tweeting me when over at Epsom, not at Epsom, but on Twitter when I mentioned it, Epsom, they said, oh yeah, they're all drifting after I'd said about the fact that they will all be backed. They obviously were backed, and Arrest even ended up going off favourite for the Epsom Derby. I mean, it's easy for me to say, oh, who was backing that, but it's easy to say in hindsight afterwards, isn't it? But it's just, all I'm saying is if you like Frankie Dettori on any of his mounts this week, regardless, whatever race, whatever, as soon as they're declared, if you can get them in before because you know that he's mounted up, he's jocked up, because you can go to Racing Post website or the BHA website, and if you want to take the risk, then I'd back them before. If not, you want to get in as early as possible, because Frankie Dettori's mounts are going to go short all week. Put it this way, it'll be even more of a negative if you have a horse that's say 6-4 with Frankie on it and it has the form to be 6-4 and that horse is drifting, because that's going to be a significant double negative. One, the market's obviously against it, but two, there's not enough Frankie money. There's going to be a lot of people each day that aren't even going to consider, they're just going to walk into a Ladbrokes or a Coral or whatever. Who's Frankie Dettori riding accumulator? Who's Frankie Dettori riding accumulator? What's Frankie Dettori writing? Singles, doubles, trebles, multiples. They are just going to back in blind. No, and they do it there's quite a lot of people who do it every year, but also this year in particular because it's his last. Will it actually be his last? I don't know. I know I stood here at the start of the season and I said I thought Frankie would be a bit like the Cristiano Ronaldo situation where he's coming back and maybe it won't all be as rosy as he hopes it is. But at the end of the day, you can't knock the man at the moment. He has hit the ground running. He's been red hot, everything. I think he has had a few doorways wide open for him to just kick home, but at the same time, he's not missed an opportunity. We haven't had one of those, Frankie moments where he's boxed in. But I'd be surprised if we don't get one this week because of just the amount of races. He's going to be on high-profile horses, and it will happen to probably all the jockeys. You're not going to. It's very rare that a jockey will ride the perfect 28 races. I think it's 28 races. So all I'm saying, bottom line is, if you like Frankie Dettori, I would try and get on as possible, quick as possible. At the same time, though, saying that is that if the market disagrees with you enough, then just try and get the best odds guaranteed as well. Because obviously, if you get that on side, then it means when the market does push back, like the punters that are coming in with their big money and they're not looking to see who's riding it, like Frankie Dettori, they're not taking that in the form lines. Then they will push back on big days like this. Obviously, every day this week is like the equivalent of a Saturday racing, so the markets will be proper markets like the Betfair big boys. And if he's getting pushed out, you'll at least be on it then. Me personally, Frankie Dettori is just another jockey. Him and Ryan Moore are, in my opinion, two of the best jockeys, especially at Royal Ascot. But I'm not going to back horses just because Frankie Dettori's on them, especially as obviously they are going to be overbet. And if they are going to be overbet, I'll be trying to get them in as quick as possible. So final factor is jumps to the flat. So a lot of people go on about this. They say, like, obviously, well, people say it about me as well. People say, oh, you're really good at the jumps. You know everything about the jumps. You do this, you do that stuff. I think the flat generally, it's not specific to an individual. The flat generally is a lot more difficult. There's no bottom line of saying how. The people that I know two people who punt professionally on the flat away from the grouped actions, and they concentrate mainly on things like 3-year-old handicaps, the things people aren't looking at, the equivalent of Division 2 football, so the quiet stuff where people are looking at away from this. Like these group races, not only is it obviously very competitive, the difference is, like, say we were at Cheltenham and it was the Champion Chase, you could have an 8 runner, but in reality there's 2 that you think those 2 are streaks ahead. The other 6, they don't have any chance. A lot of the time you do get the odd outsider, but a lot of the time those 2 are so far clear that does happen. Whereas on the flat, often you get other horses that parachute in like last minute, and then suddenly there'll be a turnover and the outsider comes in. You get that a lot more. But the thing that more so for Royal Ascot Week, to why things are more difficult, is stuff like 2-year-olds. So you're getting 2-year-olds that are coming here, and you'll have 3-to-1 shots, you'll have 6-to-4 shots, you'll have 4-to-6 shots, and they will have had, say, 1 run in their life, 2 runs in their life. You don't know if they're on the right side for the draw. You don't know how they're going to handle the crowds. You don't know how they're going to handle being in a big field. You don't know how they're going to handle Royal Ascot. So, I mean, at the end of the day, I'm not here to tell you what to do. I'm just going from my personal experience. There's certain races where you could punt harder, and others where you may want to pull back. This isn't me to say, like, say, if you really fancy, obviously there's a lot of people who absolutely love elite status, and if that's your nap of the week, then you go with that at the end of the day. But all I'm saying is, it's not so much people go, oh, Cheltenham's easy, Ascot's hard. You don't win any money at Ascot, you win everything at Cheltenham. It is hard, but it's just trying to spread. Me personally, I spread my basket wider. So at Cheltenham, I could target 4 or 5 horses and be like, these are my horses. Where at Ascot, I might go for 7 or 8 horses, because you can miss the dartboard more than once, but you often get slightly bigger, well, you get bigger prices because it's more competitive racing. Jumps racing, everything that people complain about for jumps racing, the whole, oh, it's all scheduled into one, you get horses funneled in, so we'll get like the Arkle, the Marsh and the Brown Advisory spread into 3 different fields. You don't get that here at Ascot. You'll get, say, for the miler, you've got all the milers have to go in there. You might have, say, like a 10 furlong race, you might have this, but the quality holds up because it's such a big amount of horses in that pool. Like, you look at the 10 furlong races and the 8 furlong Group 1, they're both rock solid, very good competitive races. Anyway, I have massively digressed and obviously ended up in the jump sphere as usual. But all I'm saying is it's a marathon, not a sprint. So if you're watching this video and you back whatever on Tuesday, if it comes to the end of Tuesday and you've had 7 out of 7 losers, I wouldn't be thrown in the towel saying that's it. I'd just plan your week, and I'd work in reverse, because there's some nice horses running Thursday and Friday. So I'd check those out before you end up. If you end up punting hard on certain days, I'd make sure you know where your best bets are for the week. So anyway, chit chat over. Let's get straight to it. Quick drink. So we are covering Tuesday of Royal Ascot. Only covering Tuesday, because like I said, that's the only day I've got decks for currently. So Tuesday, onto Royal Ascot. When I talk about the Discord prices, I'm not doing it to like brag or to say, oh yeah, they've got this price there. I'm doing it just because it's very difficult to paint a picture without explaining it. So for me, I'm going to keep this quite simple. Innsbruck and Modern Games both set a very, very high standard. The standard on paper doesn't look that much higher. Like, you look on ratings, Muta Sarbek and Native Trail are only £2 below those. Modern Games is top rated 121. But Modern Games is a multiple Group 1 winner. Innsbruck was also a multiple Group 1 winner, and she also gets a £3 weight allowance. The difference between the two, in fact, it'd be easier if I just do them individually. So Modern Games obviously is a globe trotter. Gone round to Charlie Appleby, and I'll be the first to say that I don't always count these Group 1s abroad as Group 1s. However, he did it last time out, achieving a career best in the Lockinge on decent ground, so fast ground, at Newbury, beating the majority of this field. So if I flick through the rest of this field, you've got the likes of Chindit, Muta Sarbek, Light Infantry, Triple Time. All of these horses, obviously, they're all much bigger prices and they could all win this race. But every single one of them has got to swap form or got to reverse the form with Modern Games. So that's why he's the favourite. And it makes sense. There's nothing about it. Obviously, Charlie Appleby had that wobbly phase 2-3 weeks ago, but that seems to be well and truly over. I'll have just a quick look on his form. I saw he had a winner earlier on today. So he's had 17 runners in the last 14 days and 6 have won. So he's back up to 35% strike rate, and his horse has run into form in the last 14 days at 79%. So as I said, it's a long time. I said that 10 days ago, I said 10 days is a long time in horse racing, especially on the flat, and here he is, he's back in business. So Modern Games is the one to beat, in my opinion. He holds Innsbruck on form from when they met here at Ascot on Champions Day in the QE2 Stakes. But however, Innsbruck was sent off favourite that day, and she just completely fell out the stalls. She gave up probably 5 to 10 lengths. Frankie made no effort to rush her up, and he gave her a conservative ride. She plodded around the back, and then she finished 6th. But it was only beaten 5 lengths by Bayside Boy, and Modern Games beaten 1.5 lengths. So that's a 3.5 length deficit with very little effort from Frankie. So you could argue that obviously she hasn't got much to find on that. and she obviously still gets the weight allowance. Problem is with Innsbruck is that she's an all or nothing horse, in my opinion. Plenty of people can make. In fact, I say she's an all or nothing horse. That's maybe not quite the truth, because take out the Prosperous Voyage flop at 1-7 when she was on the wrong side of the track, and the fact she fell out the stalls last time, then she's got obviously she's won every other race. The issue is, though, she has got those issues. Like, she could fall out the stalls at Royal Ascot once more, and if she does that, then she's not going to beat these. However, last year her career best came at Royal Ascot. The difference was that was on the round track. This is the straight track, but she's got straight track form from when she won the Jacques Le Marois over in France. She beat Light Infantry that day, who reopposes here, who's finished behind both Modern Games and Innsbruck. So I think she has a rock solid form. I'm not going to beat around the bush with loads of these. Native Trail for me, if you're a miler and you're going to be a top miler for your stable, you won't be swapped in and out of a mile unless it's for cash purposes, and when you're in the Godolphin colours, that's not normally the case. So the fact they stepped him up to 10 furlongs was a warning for me, and obviously he failed at that project, coming 3rd and 5th in 2 Group 1s over 10 furlongs, back down to the 8, returned behind Mutasabek. He travelled, but he just always looked in trouble behind Mutasabek, and that's why I thought Mutasabek had maybe took his level up a gear in the Lockinge, and that he'd be a big player. And Mutasabek ran a great race, but at the same time he was well beaten, and that puts Native Trail behind. I think if you're backing him, you're just looking for something that's different, that hasn't been beaten by Modern Games in Innsbruck, in my opinion. So the selections that we put up anti-post on Discord a while ago was 3-1 Innsbruck and 3-1 Modern Games. Just split the stakes straight down the middle, the equivalent of getting paid out evens. I mean, now they're both 2-1, so if you were to do that exact same bet, you'd end up getting paid out at 1-2 rather than evens. They are the selections. I don't really know how. Of course, horses could reverse the form. I'll be fuming if Mutasabek did it, because obviously where I was on him in the Lockinge and he was well beaten. And it's very hard to make all. But at the same time, if you wanted just one selection, I think it depends on what sort of punter you are. If you want, Modern Games has got the best numbers, the best form, has finished in front of Innsbruck, despite that obviously the Innsbruck didn't run a race. Loves fast ground, Yarder back in form, and you know he's solid as a rock. He's going to run his race. He's got no reason not to run his race, and he's got his conditions. However, Innsbruck is just the flair filly. She could be the all or nothing. You could see Frankie doing the flying dismount straight away. Like, she's got big numbers. You look at her, so 1-2-3 plus weight allowance, that would put her at 1-2-6. That would be £2 higher than Modern Games' career best. So if she ran to her level that she ran to last year, when she won here at Royal Ascot, that would put her bang on top of Modern Games and probably finishing in front of him. And also, you've got to think, what price would Innsbruck have gone off on that Lockinge? I think she would have gone off favourite with her weight allowance. So she's the horse that she's got that explosive, but at the same time, she could also just bomb out or not even come out the stalls. But to have both on sides, mega. But at the same time, conservative punter, you just want the solid, makes sense, Modern Games. The other way is Innsbruck. I'm not saying the rest can't win, obviously, but at the same time, they've all got work to do to turn it around. On to the next race. So the next race is the Coventry Stakes. I'm not going to spend long on this race whatsoever. Like, I love 2-year-old, love the 2-year-old spectacle, love 2-year-old races. If you pick them up at an early stage, like you get the 10s, 12s, whatever. Like, I got the elite status at some, like, I think it was about 29-1, something like that. That's brilliant. But at the same time, do you want to dive in when they're like 5-4 even money? I'm quite, not strong, but I think the front two are quite away clear. It's interesting they've both been drawn on the opposite sides of the track. So River Tiber's over in 6, Asadna's in 17. Asadna's got a massive benefit that she's got fandom of Wesley Ward's in 15. So when that horse bolts out and is clearly going to try and make all, then Asadna can literally sit on the tail. Problem is with Asadna, it wasn't the fastest in the first like 3 or 4 furlongs. It was just more finding off the bridle. There was a very strange market move, and the rumour was that Asadna had a cut his leg on the gallop and wasn't going to be racing it. So River Tiber went all the way into 5-4, 6-4, but now Asadna's been declared. I'd imagine they're going to start levelling out. If they do begin to level out a bit more, I'd be looking for a River Tiber versus Asadna match bet, and I'd be going with River Tiber if it was around even money. Chances are, the way the market is at the moment, it's probably not going to get back to that, because they were 11-4 apiece. And the bottom line with it is the fact that I like a horse that's got more than one run. I want the experience. Asadna reminds me of the Mum's Tipple effect. Absolute rocket performance. Clock watchers went mad. The money came in. Everything went crazy. and then obviously didn't back it up again. Was a good horse, just not a phenomenal horse. So whereas River Tiber's getting the O'Brien campaign where they're gritty, they're hardy, they're training him. Like, he was made to work hard for that last time out. That wasn't an easy run, and he likes to get them up over 5 furlongs to begin with, so that they learn faster. So that when they're at 6 furlongs, they've got a bit more time. So if you're forcing me for a selection from the front two, I'm going River Tiber, and as well if you were doing a match bet. But this isn't a race I'd want to get like heavily involved in. And with regards to Give Me the Beat Boys, I really like Noche Magica, who Give Me the Beat Boys beat. But Noche Magica I just don't think stayed in the heavy ground. I think he looks a 5 furlong horse and he'll be much better suited in the Norfolk later in the week. Give Me the Beat Boys at 4-1, the same price as a Sadner. See, then this is again, every man's got his price. Like, I'd rather back a Sadner over Give Me the Beat Boys, even though a Sadner's only had one run. Give Me the Beat Boys numbers just aren't there with the front two. Like, they're not at the same levels. Well, actually, that's not true. There's about £1 between them. But Give Me the Beat Boys has got Frankie Dettori on board and is going to the sales on Monday night. So, but those combination of two things, if he ends up getting bought for a big paycheck, and also obviously Frankie in the stable, then that's why the price is so low. Like, it was something like 10-1 or 12-1, literally like a week or two ago. So, but we've seen winners all sorts in the 2-year-old races come from nowhere, and this isn't one that's got huge amounts of depth, and a lot of these only have one run. So for me, it is between the front two. I like River Tiber and a Sadner, and of the two, I prefer River Tiber. And if I'm getting, if there's, I don't know, if he does drift and he's like 2-1 or 5-2 on the day, at the end of the day, it's like Cheltenham, first day of Royal Ascot. You could well get Betfred first thing in the morning offering up 2-1 or 5-2, and 5-2 for Pinot. I'd happy to take that. But again, it wouldn't be one of my strongest bets. Right, on to, let's see, have I got it up here? Let me just flip around to my, been writing my blog. So here's a stat about Highfield Princess. Remarkable in a field of this quality that she is the only one rated above 113, of which 11 of the last 12 winners were all rated above 113. So the thing with this, obviously, you've got to take it with a pinch of salt because of the fact that the Australians, Americans, stuff like that, they won't come across with ratings. So like things like Coolangatta, Cannonball, obviously they all don't count in effect. But at the same time, the horses that are at home, so like the horse like Mannequin and stuff, they're all below this. Whereas she is miles clear of that. She's at 119, so she's £6 clear of that, and she's also getting the allowance. So not only is she above, she's also getting £3 allowance for the mare's allowance. Age-wise, 3-year-olds don't have a great record in this, which obviously would be a negative against the likes of Dramatise, Marshman, Coolangatta herself. But obviously, I'm sure it was I think Lady Aurelia came back and she won this, blowing it to bits. I think she was 3 the year she did it. So it's not to say you can't do it, but it's just the experience levels against these sort of form horses. And to be honest, in fact, I'll do a quick flick through these. So I like Gleeman. I'm not a massive fan of these American sprinters who've come back. She finished second a few years ago, but I've seen nothing spectacular since. Or like as in over the last few years, marked up best RPR 111. Yeah, that'll take you to win the King's Stand. Marshman, not saying he's regressive, but at the same time I'm not saying he's progressive compared to the likes of a Dramatise who's come and obviously stepped up a gear, achieved another higher number. I think the only problem with Dramatise is how you rate that form. So obviously Dramatise was on the bias when winning the Temple Stakes. Temple Stakes got a good record. The winners or runners of that race have got a good record in this race. The only thing with obviously that is, well, one, she was getting the weight. She gets the weight again here, so that's not an issue. But William Buick would not leave that rail. He was adamant that he was staying on that rail. After Little Big Bear had won on the rail the race before, it was pretty obvious that there was a strong rail bias, and he was not for leaving that rail. And I think obviously that helped her. At the same time, she was electric here last year in the, what was it called? What are we called? The Queen Mary Stakes over 5 furlongs. So we know she loves the track. Carl Burke and his fillies and mares are phenomenal anyway. So the only thing that I don't like about it is the price. Like, she's not exactly giving anything away around the 6-1, 7-1 mark. Mannequin, again, here comes the Dettori factor straight away. Like, this is coming into 5-2, 11, 5-1, 11-2. So has got good form, especially in Ireland. Is an Ascot winner. But you look at the numbers through, like you're looking at 1-1-2, 3, 1-1-9, 1-1-12, and then you're looking at against the favourite Highfield Princess, 1-2-5, 1-2-2, 1-2-2. Like, not saying obviously he can't, because a king stand, like the slightest mistake, error, boxed in, anything could be the difference between winning and losing, and they often finish in a heat. But on simple terms, she is a good, like her 125 there. That's £6 clear of his best. So regardless of Frankie Dettori being on board, she's got a £3 allowance. She's proven at the track as well. And also, if you stop the King Stand sorry, not the King Stand, the Diamond Jubilee, Platinum Jubilee last year, so the 6 furlong race on the Saturday. If you stop that at the furlong pole, so as if it was a 5 furlong race, I know this is all just very context sort of thing. She's in front, and she just fades out of it, finishes behind Creative Force, and just drifts back and finishes fifth. She went on to improve leaps and bounds, and even the greatest sprinters like the likes of Soul Power are not consistent in every sprint, but she won 3 Group 1s back to back. And obviously, like I said, with modern games, it's taken a bit of a pinch of salt when they go off around the different areas around the world to collect these Group 1s. But at the same time, one was at the Curragh. It's not like, when I say different countries, you're looking at, it was England. England, she won at York. She won the big race at York, which is the Nunthorpe. And she won that fairly easily as well. Then she went and won the Flying Five over in Ireland, and these are like 3 lengths of time. And she'd also went and won the Maurice de Geest in France, so she conquered everywhere. The only place she had left was Keeneland, and you can easily forgive that run. She returned with a monster performance behind Azure Blue, only £3 below her career best, and I think 5-2 is fairly fair. I don't think it's amazing, but I just think that's like, it's hard to knock that sort of price. Obviously, the horse I haven't spoke about at all so far is Coolangatta. So Coolangatta is very, very interesting. And to be honest, it was going to be a cover bet or another bet potentially on my selection list when was at the bigger prices, the 7 or 8 to 1. There was rumour that it wasn't coming over, that she wasn't coming over, sorry, due to a bad work piece, and drifted. They were like, oh, we're not sure she's going to get on the plane, blah, blah, blah. But her last time out, career best, was impressive. She won the Black Caviar. She beat Nature Strip in behind. But before everyone starts going, wow, Nature Strip, last year's winner, that wasn't the same Nature Strip. Like, they run a lot of sprints over there, and obviously over different trips they run over 5, 6, 7 furlongs, and it wasn't the same. And they did finish in a bunch. Like, Nature Strip finished 6th and he was 2.5 lengths back. But the bottom line was she did win, and she beat, the big thing she did was she beat I Wish I Win, which is another one of their up and coming sprinters. And you look at the numbers coming from I Wish I Win, and they're like 124, 119, 124, and I Wish I Win is just beating Giga Kick, which is another monster out in Australia. So she's been mixing it with some of the best, but the strange thing, well, I say strange thing, that one run marks her out very differently from all her others so far. Like, her others put her in around 105, 106 RPRs, and that run put her into a 115. So she was getting weight off the field. But for me, okay, if they come over, we all know how good Australian sprinters are, but I'm not having that every single one of them is phenomenal. But if she comes over, would I be shocked if she blows this field to bits? No, of course I wouldn't, because it's just what they do. It's what the Australians do to us. But at the same time, I think Highfield Princess sets a very strong standard. And whilst on form, obviously Coolangatta's last run is massive. They both run off the same weights. She's got form. Highfield Princess got form at the track. She comes here after a very strong run. The only reason Coolangatta's been backed is because she's gone from having a very bad workout to then coming here, running around Royal Ascot, and then having apparently a really good workout. So now she's sat there at 7-2. And it wouldn't surprise me at this rate if they both end up 3-1 a pair. And again, that would be, for me, if they go 3-1 a pair, okay, I'll have my eggs on my face twice. And what I mean by that is that I've already backed Highfield Princess anti-post. And if they do go 3-1 a piece or whatever, and it's say even money for Highfield Princess to beat Coolangatta, then I'll go even money. I'll take the Highfield Princess to beat Coolangatta. Or if it's a shade of odds on, let's say 10-11 or something like that, and then I'll have 2 bets on it. I'd rather lose twice in to be honest, because I think Coolangatta has got perfect blowout potential. Could win, could easily win, but at the same time could end up out the back of the TV. There's no guarantee of it. Whereas I think she is rock solid. I'd be shocked if she doesn't run. Like, you look at all her form, she didn't run a bad race last year. The horse is each way my longer shot, who still interests me, is last year's second place King Stand in this race by Nature Strip. Obviously was never going to get close to Nature Strip for 4.5 lengths, and also isn't in the same form as last year. But the Yardar, so Henry Candy is. So I'm hoping that he's just slowly bringing them along to tick, and that's Twilight Calls, ridden by Ryan Moore. We know he's going to be ridden cold. And this is again like the Americans. This is a horse that needs a rattling fast ground, a fast-paced way mat, and a big field. And you know he's going to be buried. And for me, it's perfect each way places. I don't know what the places are. You might have each way 4, 5, 6. I just think it's a horse that, if it's on a going day, this year been two complete no-shows, 91 and 96 RPRs. But one of them was in soft ground, and the other one was when on the wrong side of the track against Dramatised. And I'm hoping that both times, not given a hard time, and they were just brought along slow time for this. And I'm hoping Henry Candy has got this locked up, ready for one big run. I just look through the field and I just think surely Ryan Moore would have been offered a few of these mounts. And the fact that he's decided to go with Twilight Calls, considering he obviously was rode him before. So it'll be 20-25 to 1. He's not out of it for me. But Highfield Princess for me is the one, and I'd rather take that to beat the Australian. I'd take her to beat the Australian. On to the St James's Palace Stakes. Now this is still like a head scratcher for me personally. I mean, Royal Scotsman's been declared. Which Royal Scotsman turns up, not too sure. For me, he's probably a 7 furlong horse. Could bounce back here, but he's got work to do. He's already finished twice behind Chaldine. Isaac Shelby, very, very interesting horse, and is top of my shortlist for my second selection. I'm not sure whether I want to back him just yet. Got beaten by Mojave Yasanafi, but Mojave Yasanafi finished third behind Big Rock and who was the monster, Ace Impact, the other day. So that's not bad form at all. That's in fact, that's actually very good form. So there is substance to his second place over at Longchamp. But the problem is, obviously, finished 12 lengths behind Chaldine, but that was a absolute no run last year. So he ran a great race in the Greenham. My only concern is stamina for this horse. I just thought that maybe he's a 7 furlong going towards 8 furlongs. And the problem is this is round a bend as well. The St James Palace is round the bend, which will suit. But when they go to quicken, how much will he find when push under the pump? And the answer is I just don't know. So he's on my shortlist. Basically, I've got 3 on the shortlist that I'll run through. The horse that's not on the short, I say 2 on the shortlist and 1 that I have already backed. And the one I've backed is Mostabshire. Anyone who follows me on Twitter will know, and anyone in the Discord will know as well. Took that at 10 to 1. It was just one of those electric debuts. I say debuts, returns. Looked very average on return and didn't really run any race. But second time out, I backed Zuryab and New Business and Katab, who I thought had the best form in the Wood Ditton, finishing behind Passenger. And Mostabshire gave a £6 penalty and absolutely demolished this field. Since then, Zuryab has hacked up and won very easily, and so has New Business. So second and fourth have both won very easily since. So the form's there. And if you look back through the years, John Gosden's not afraid to tilt one in this when he thinks he's got one. So like he had the likes of Palace Pier won this before, Without Parole has won this before, but he also doesn't waste darts. So I look back through the last 10 years and he hasn't gone there with a scattergun approach and gone, oh yeah, I'll chuck this one in there, I'll chuck this one in there. And a lot of the time, if they haven't won, they've gone there or thereabouts, or they've not embarrassed themselves, because this is a massive step up, obviously, in class. So for me, he still remains a bet. If you haven't had a bet, you 10 to 1. Like, don't get me wrong, obviously there's horses with much better form, but he's one of those where, what if? And the other one that is, again, you're going on, there's 2 potential horses, and the other potential horse is Cicero's Gift. Like, this one's kind of settled down a bit more now, more towards 5 to 1. That's a bit more realistic. Like, at one stage, the horse was about 11 to 4 behind the 2 Guineas winners. I mean, I get it. I see it. I see it very similar to Mostabshire, even though Cicero's Gift's got even better form. But I just, the price has been demolished. So the difference is, to me, both of these two should probably be 8 to 1. Whereas Cicero's Gift's half that. You're looking at 4 to 1, 5 to 1. Hasn't, like, on RPRs, okay, yeah, got a better RPR, 112 over a 109. But beating Colsai, who Colsai was beaten in a very moderate race behind Regal Reality. Like, I mean, that's very moderate form. But that doesn't mark this horse down as not a potential superstar. And that's a good thing with this race. You've got 2 potential stars against 2 that have got the form in the. You've got a horse that's finished second over in French Guineas. I'm sure it was the French 2000, wasn't it? Yeah, the Des Poulains over in France in Isaac Shelby. Then you've got the English and Irish 2000 Guineas. Problem is, I really don't know how to rate these 2,000 Guineas form. Everyone keeps knocking Chaldine and he just keeps knocking them back and winning. But that 2,000 Guineas was an absolute open goal. Like, I don't think Frankie was even doing a tap in front. He didn't even, it was like anyone could have been steering that horse at the end. Like, half the field ended up just pretty much pulled up. The ones that did run their race, they just weren't good enough. And you go through the form, and the horses they're just nowhere near. And obviously the two best horses are the two that finished last and third last, and that was Little Big Bear and August Rodin. So I mean, if those two had finished second and third, you'd be looking at this thinking, Jesus, he should be odds on. So at the same time, though, he is on the shortlist, because my only concern for him isn't to do with his form or anything like that, because he's got the levels of form. He's hitting heavy 116, 118, 120. It's the sharp track and the good ground. A lot of his form's been on the softer surface. So I just don't know. And Paddington is another really difficult to weigh up. I'd imagine a lot of people, obviously, anyone, I go back to the Frankie Dettori factor. Ryan Moore has ridden red hot this year so far. And I think Ryan Moore, this year he's also riding a lot of his mounts a lot more prominent. And I think I wouldn't be surprised if Paddington and Luxembourg get very similar rides, in the fact that they are either from the front or they are very prominent. And it would not surprise me if he tries to almost make all very similar to what he did in the Curragh. The thing at the Curragh is, I think the Curragh had a huge bias. Well, I don't think, I know. The times and sectionals all added up in the fact that if you were on the front at the Curragh, it was a huge benefit to you. And he just stole the race from the front. That's not to say the horse isn't a good horse. And obviously he's now 4 on the beat. But the thing is, does Aidan O'Brien normally start his horses that obviously win Irish 2000 guineas and then come here as a Group 1 horse? I mean, he was a handicapper not long ago. He won his first 2 races. He was 7 furlong handicaps, and then his race, he then won a listed race, beating Drumroll before coming into the Irish Guineas. And again, we go back to the English Guineas being poor, but I looked through there. Cairo didn't have any form in the numbers. His numbers are awful. And then you've got High Royal and Charin and Galeron from over in the UK, who had all ran in the 2000 guineas on bottomless ground. So, me personally, if Paddington wins a case, so be it. It's one of those. I think there could be a potential star in this race, but you won't know it until afterwards. And it could well be the Moss Dabshire and Cicero's Gift. So at the moment for me, currently, Moss Dabshire is the play, because I'm on it anti-post. And then the shortlist that at the moment is Isaac Shelby or Chaldine. I know they're complete opposite ends of the spectrum, but you could argue Chaldine should be a 5-4 or 6-4 shot, and his 9-4 might end up 5-2, 11-4 by the time the race comes round. And Isaac Shelby's out at 10-1 and has arguably got very similar form to the front two. I can't have Cicero's Gift, not because I can't have it winning, it's just the fact that it's half the price of Moss Dabshire, and I think they've got very similar form. So, but that's my shortlist. Obviously, my final selections and content will be up on Twitter probably tomorrow. On to the Ascot Stakes. So the Ascot Stakes, 5 o'clock. And for me, this is all about Bring on the Night. Currently priced at 5-2. I know short price, and he's got an absolute stink draw. He's ended up in draw 15, and it is mega frustrating. It's not okay. I say this over the last 10 years. I think it's five drawn single fingers, 5 drawn double figures of 1. So it's not an issue. It's just I think 4 of the last 5 have been drawn low figures. But I looked back and I've watched back through all of the races, and you see the way that Ryan Moore rides horses. It just depends how he rides his horse. Thomas Hobson was second last, and he literally went through and scythed the absolute field. He just sat at the back, waited for his gaps, just went straight through like an arrow. And you're just like, wow, I've got about 4 stone in hand. This is easy. And then you get other horses who they literally have got the tiniest amount in hand, and that's the difference. He didn't have a spectacular draw last year, and he's not been seen since last year. So for people who didn't watch Royal Ascot last year, Bring on the Night was sent off the 3-1 favourite last year in this race. The Ascot Stakes was drawn low. Went off, not prominent, but about mid-pack. Went round, then came to the end, and he was beaten by none other than Coltrane. So I'm not going to stand here, and obviously I'm going to tell a bit, but not too much. So Coltrane on that day was rated 98. Coltrane now is rated 117. So let's put that. So obviously Coltrane's improved £19. Also, Callum Hutchinson was taking £5 off. So that's the equivalent of Coltrane having a £24 swing. And they were racing off levels, so Bring on the Night was racing off the same weight as Coltrane. Bring on the Night also came into that race off the back of running at both Cheltenham and Punchestown, so may not have been as fresh, and he has got winning form when fresh. And the fact that we haven't seen this horse since would maybe think that they've just had this as the plan all along. Comes here and is £4 higher than that mark last year. Obviously bearing in mind Coltrane's Gold Cup favourite later in the week, but also if you put Coltrane into this race, obviously you can't, but if you would, he'd be the equivalent of like giving Bring on the Night like £25. Well, obviously he wouldn't because he hasn't got a claimer, but it would be the fact that he would have to give him £19. But take that away, and you've got other good horses in behind, like the likes of Rashun, Arcadian Sunrise, and okay, they're not world beaters, but they're also not bad horses. So it's solid form without being spectacular. The downside is obviously the draw, but the positive is you've got Ryan Moore on board, and also he's 5-2. Like I could have easily seen this horse being 6-4. I could have easily seen it. I couldn't see it being bigger than 3-1, but I could have seen it being 6-4. Because of the way it's drawn, I don't think that's going to necessarily happen. But if Ryan Moore starts winning, then it would not surprise me. I just think it's very. We all know how good Willie Mullins is. Jumps trainers have a ridiculously good record in this race. He's been saved clearly for this race. The form of Coltrane is good. And you look through this, Nicky Henderson has had many favourites or well fancied in this, but he's not been able to get his head in front in recent years. So the ones I'm not just going to play one horse in this race. I've got a short list. Unfortunately, I've been really stung with the 3 horses I liked are all drawn in the car park. So the 3 that I liked was obviously Bring on the Night, as mentioned. The next one is Law of the Sea, who I thought was a massive eye catcher when finishing 4th at Chester behind Metier. Didn't get a run when all over the shop. The issue with that is that when running next time out, I know it was over 2 miles, 2.5 furlongs shorter, and 4 furlongs shorter than this. Yeah, 4 furlongs shorter than this. Didn't really pick up like I'd hope you would against Solent Gateway, and ended up finishing with the same RPRs. Comes here off a £1 higher mark again, so it's gone up £2 since that Chester run. So, but at the same time, Ian Williams has got a brilliant record in this race, and he has won it. Just check. I don't want to tell you lies. 1, 2. He's won it twice in the last 4 years. Not necessarily with short price horses either. So he's to be respected, and I do like him. I'm just trying to work out what price he should be with the draw and taking everything into consideration. He's a hold-up horse, so the draw's not so bad. He can come in from the side. It's just how much ground. Like I rewatched the races today, and coming from all the way across, it's never going to be a benefit. So the other one that was drawn in the car park that I do still really like, and this will be a selection regardless, is Zinc White, also from Ian Williams' yard, Jim Crowley. And again, I'm going back to obviously the Chester form before. And then Zinc White ran in the Chester consolation form. The reason I'm going to the Chester form line is because you look at last year, Coltrane ran really well at Chester when finishing second behind Cleveland, and the horse Arcadian Sunrise also ran at Chester. So I like that as a race, the Chester prep before coming here. So the winner of the consolation plate at Chester over the 2 miles 2 furlongs was Zinc White. Zinc White just looked like it just dropped in on the day. Went round there, 33-1 shot, big grey horse around the outside, was held up out the back, came through and just looked like being parachuted in, and that was off 561 days. So the positive is the fact that plenty of improvement still to come. Negative is the fact that the horse could bounce. The thing is, only put up £8 for that, which I thought was more than fair, and especially on only second start for Ian Williams. So I think this horse has got a solidly, I don't want to say great chance, but a solid chance. The favourite that day, so in second, was the 11-8 favourite, which was Novel Legend. So this is my final horse on the shortlist. And Novel Legend was again held up out the back and just beaten by a better handicapped horse on the day. The only downside for Novel Legend is he still managed to go up £6 for that performance, whereas Zinc White's gone up 8 for beating him quite comfortably 2.25 lengths. So he's technically a lot less fortunate with regards to the handicapper. The positive for him is he's been drawn on the inside. He's drawn 1. The negative for that is the fact that if you're not out of drawn 1, you're going to end up stuck in the middle of the pack. But over 2 miles and 4 furlongs, is it that big a deal? Probably not. So they're my shortlist. Bring on the Night, I've already backed. I will be back in Zinc White, currently 14-1. And then the other 2, I will pick one of the 2 of either Novel Legend or Law of the Sea. And people will be saying, oh, how can you back a 5-2 shot and then a 14-1 shot and a 12-1? At the end of the day, you don't have to have the same amount of money on all of them. So you have, say, if you have, in point simple terms, if you have 1 point on the 5-2 shot, you might only have 0.25 on 2 of the others or whatever. At the end of the day, it's about making profit. And at Royal Ascot, it's about enjoying the racing as well. So they will be my selections. So Bring on the Night and Zinc White, and then I'll decide between Novel Legend and Law of the Sea. to how important the draw is. And also the other side of things is the jumps trainers have a much better record in that, which would be a negative against Novel Legend, but obviously he has got the draw. So the Wolferton, I'm not going to go deep into this because I've gone round in circles in it, and I've got a short list, but I just haven't narrowed it down. The bottom line is, I mean, Saga's to be taken on. Saga could win the race, but is a horse that just absolutely loves coming second too often on the big day. Second here, Royal Ascot last year, off a mark of 97 in the Britannia. Comes here off a mark of 106, so he is £9 higher, gets Frankie aboard again. I would argue, I wouldn't argue, should have definitely won the Suffolk Stakes last time out, and that was off 102. Comes here off £4 higher. It's just a horse that always seems to find a way to get itself beat. When I say beat, comes second on the big day. Obviously, it would not surprise me. The money just keeps pouring for this. 4-1 favourite currently after Dex. It's got Frankie Dettori on it. It's the King's horse, and it's the first day of Royal Ascot. So for me, I personally will be taking it on. If it wins, okay, it's a 4-1 shot. I'll take it. The shortlist at the moment is Buckaroo. I like £3 penalty, but that doesn't look an issue because he's got a group and listed form, so he's a class above plenty of these. It does benefit to be in low draws, and he's drawn 10, but as we find out through the day, that may not be too big an issue. Francesco Clemente was top of my shortlist, and that actually opened the same price as Saga. They both opened at 5-1, but when Frankie Dettori went Saga, and Robert Haviland got on Francesco Clemente, that meant that out he went, and he's now out to 15. He's out towards 15-2, 8-1. So the only thing for me I thought Francesco Clemente's comeback run was brilliant. It was a bit like the horse that won, I cannot remember what it's called, Torito, who won at Epsom, where he came, had a big strong run, petered out and then finished, and then came to Epsom and then bolted up. And that reminded me the same of Francesco Clemente, the way he travelled into the race at Goodwood. My massive negative, and again, I don't like to beat around the bit, is jockey bookings. Robert Haviland's booked. First time cheap pieces as well, but Robert Haviland's booked, and I'm not like a horrible or negative person, but I really struggle to get on side with someone that if I've got Robert Haviland on board and he's cruising into contention, and I look to one side and Ryan Moore's coming alongside, and say there's £2 or £3 between them of horse, like as in the horse's ability, like I think Ryan Moore's going past every day of the week, and that's just at Lingfield or Sandown or somewhere like that, not just on the big occasion at Royal Ascot. So I may still back him anyway because of his price, because he shouldn't be twice the price of Saga, but I'm just going to sleep on it for now. And one that I do like at the moment, 12-1, is Cadillac. Cadillac last year's second, bolted up for George Bowie on handicap debut when Kevin Stott gave it plenty to do, but maybe that was by design. Left him out the back, came around, peeled away. Only downside is George Bowie's pretty adamant that the horse prefers going left-handed. Obviously this will be right-handed, but I mean, you could argue that, but came a brilliant second in this last year, so can't hate going right-handed that much, and has winning form going right-handed. Gets the assistance of James McDonald, and I just think at 11-1, 12-1, finished second it last year, shouldn't need to improve too much to feature again. So Cadillac's on my top of my shortlist, along with Francesco Clemente and Buckaroo. So I may try and break them down and try and get 2 or 3, or work out who's going each way or whatever. Or I might just back 3 of them small stakes, win only. So they're not small prices, 7-1, 8-1, and 11-1. So on to the final race of the day, and that is the Copper Horse Handicap. I haven't gone through the rest of the field. The only horse that stands out like an absolute sore thumb is Vauban. Like, I don't want to stand here and tell you to back 2-1 favourites, but I have had a small bet on him at 2-1, just because if they think that this horse has got the ability to win the likes of an Ebor or to go to Australia for the Melbourne Cup, then to be winning off a mark of 101 is pretty much a must. The thing with Vauban is he does look quite a natural flat horse. He is quite exuberant, and obviously that means there's no guarantee, because obviously he's exuberant over 2 miles over jumps. But 1 mile 6 furlongs here, he is an exuberant horse, but the way he travels, like, I'm not saying hurdles hinders him in any sort of way, but he travels like a very travelly thing in the National Hunt sphere. So it wouldn't be surprising if he was to travel here. And you look at his ratings, like he sets a fairly hefty standard for hurdlers to go back over the flat. And yeah, there's plenty of guarantees that you couldn't do this, you couldn't do that, but he's favourite for all these big handicaps. Willie Mullins knows whether he's a flat horse, and he has gone on and on about this, about him being a flat horse, even throughout the whole of his last year. And it wouldn't surprise me if they're getting some more racing into him to help him grow up, obviously as a 5-year-old. But at the same time, he was still brilliant last year. He was still hitting 160s last year, RPRs over jumps. So I'm not going to go and do all the maths and say, oh yeah, well, let's take £30 for this because of this. But I just think he's the one to beat. And again, you can stand there and say, oh, he's a favourite. Yeah, but you could be looking at come at 6 o'clock on Tuesday afternoon, he could be an even money favourite. I might be wrong, it could be 4-1. But again, I'm not going to know, and you're not going to know until we get going. And what I mean by that is if Ryan Moore starts red hot, say Ryan Moore picks up, if Ryan Moore wins the race before on Bring on the Night, and he's already got 1 or 2 winners, like there could be Ryan Moore multiples. Like forget Frankie, it could be Ryan Moore multiples. So it's just hard to gauge, and I just think 2-1 is fair. Me personally, I'd have him probably at 6-4. I have looked through the rest of the field, and there's not anything that's as unexposed as him. But at the same time, there are horses that are going to more than likely run their race more often than not, compared to something like him. One that was very interesting, well, 2 that were very interesting that stood out was Point King, especially with the booking of James McDonald. Like, I think Joseph has become quite the target trainer, and the other one was that I was quite surprised to be declared because only ran on the 9th of June, and that's Ruling Dynasty, who bolted up last time out, and so again shortlist, but I think Vauban is going to take some pegging in that. So right, on quick summary, horses that I've backed, Inspiral and Modern Games in the 230, in the 305. Wait to see what the prices do. It'd be River Tiber over a Sadner for me, but I wouldn't be surprised to see a Sadner bolt up. It wouldn't be a race I want to be diving in at. I've done those 2-year-old days. Highfield Princess I prefer over the entire field, and I'll be trying to get her in a match bet with Coolangatta. Respect Coolangatta, but it's the fact that there'll be a similar price, so you've got to try and get one with similar price. I don't want to be backing Highfield Princess at 1-4 to beat something further down the line. And Twilight Calls each way at the big prices. St James's Palace, Mostabshire 10-1, back that. The other 2 on the shortlist are Isaac Shelby and Chaldine. We'll again wait to see the markets. 5 o'clock, Bring on the Night, 5-2, took that. And the other one, Zinc White, 14-1, taken that. And then it'll be between Law of the Sea and Novel Legend of what I do with those 2. Again, not sure what to do with the Wolferton, apart from take on Frankie Dettori in the 535, just because the price is too short for a horse that doesn't win enough. Shortlist is Buckaroo, Francesco Clemente and Cadillac so far. And on to the final race, Vauban. And then I will pick at least another selection potentially, or I may not. But my final selections will all be up probably tomorrow night or first thing Tuesday morning. There's so much, obviously, information, and there's so much waiting still to be done. Like, so much could happen. We could have a huge thunderstorm tomorrow. You just don't know. But at the end of the day, Royal Ascot is not Cheltenham. Royal Ascot, you either going there. If you're going there this week, you're going there to enjoy the party. I went last year. I had a good party. It's all about the cocktails, the sunshine, the atmosphere and everything, and the music and stuff like that. And it's all about enjoying yourself. Don't get me wrong, Cheltenham's good for that as well, but that's in the evening. For me, at Cheltenham, it's all about the business during the day. So I'm not going to stand there and tell you, don't stake this, don't stake that. It's just the fact that it is a marathon, not a sprint, and it's better to have more horses on side. And if you don't win on any of the races in the first day, there's still 4 days. You don't have to go swimming into Fontwell or something like that in the evening. Anyway, I'm not here for personal advice. So I wish you the best of luck on Tuesday. I will be back tomorrow. We still won't have had any racing with day 2's selections for Royal Ascot. Thank you and goodbye.